Let's bring in Joseph Haynes Davis, who's a criminal lawyer from Orlando, Florida, who's keeping across this for us. I mean, let's start with the fact that there is now a massive call nationwide across America for institutional change at ground roots level, which will take account of the fact that there are communities who have been suffering decades of social deprivation, lack of opportunities, and disproportionate targeting by the police. Do you think this is now a turning point in that battle?
Well, yes, I do. And I always thank you so much for having me. I'd like to point to something I saw this morning, that the Supreme Court of the United States of America will be apparently taking up the issue of qualified immunity that is afforded to the police in their actions. And that has been one of the walls, if you will, of protection around the police when they have, in the instances when they have operated in a rogue fashion that has made them immune to prosecution, and sometimes even immune to civil suits because of rogue behavior by the police. I'd also like to bring attention to your audience of an article that was posted in the Washington Post on May 29th about police peer intervention, written by a Georgetown law professor, Lopez. I think also begins to talk about matters and so forth that can begin to turn the tide against the presumption of correctness and the monopoly on the presumption of correctness of the use of deadly force by the police against all citizens. So I believe this is indeed the turning point.
And this issue, this police immunity, as you will, this lack of transparency in their actions has meant that very few police officers have been charged over previous killings, which have caused protests. In this case, though, there have been criminal charges, and Derek Chauvin, the officer who was kneeling on Mr. Floyd's neck, he's now facing second-degree murder charges, which, as I understand it, carries a sentence of 40 years. Why is that not being seen as justice for George Floyd?
Well, it is probably because the masses, quite frankly, are tired of what is going on. But the fact of the matter is, progress comes in steps. It does not come in waves. Whether that's good or bad, it's up to, in my opinion, historians to determine. He has been charged with second-degree murder, according to the Minnesota statute. That is statute number 609.19, and it's without intent. And it basically, and I'm summarizing here, that he acted in such a rogue, egregious manner that that manner in which he acted caused the death of the victim, the decedent, Mr. Lynch. So it is step-by-step progress, and that is just what has to happen given some of the institutional walls that are up, and also some of the constitutional presumption of innocence until proven guilty via the United States Constitution.
Because the family, they welcomed the charges, but there's a suggestion that they would prefer to see Chauvin charged with first-degree murder. In your opinion as a criminal lawyer, is that going to be likely?
Well, you never know, but prosecutors generally try to make charges that will stick. They don't want to, what some call, overcharge, and then they have a problem with a conviction. So prosecutors generally try to look at the evidence and have the evidence lead them to the particular statutes that allow them to charge what they charge. So that is probably what has happened in Minneapolis, Minnesota. It's Hempstead County, I believe it's called, in Minneapolis, Minnesota. I believe that's what's going on.
Now, in Minnesota, we're going to be hearing from the Reverend Al Sharpton, who will be calling for changes in legislation at federal level. What do you make of that, and what are the charges? What are the changes that we need to see?
Well, again, I cannot speak for Reverend Sharpton, but it goes back to what I suggested earlier here in my appearance, that a strong, hard look needs to be looked at the qualified immunity issue. Then you have the peer intervention issue. That is, in my opinion, a policeman sees another officer acting in a rogue fashion. That officer who witnesses the rogue fashion then has a duty to intervene in the rogue act to save the citizen who is at the brunt of the rogue act. The duty then shifts to that officer to save that victim from further acts.
Joseph, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Good to speak with you. Joseph Haynes Davis, criminal lawyer there, speaking to us live from Orlando in Florida.